Hello and welcome to Mandobug Crafts, episode 104. Yes, 4, headed check. What's up everybody? I'm Mandobug. This is my channel here on YouTube where I talk about the things that I am making. And it's early in the morning. I'm still drinking my coffee. Got me in a... Like I said before I started recording, I feel feisty, so hopefully that doesn't carry through. But I'm feeling feisty this morning. You are warned. Starting the shot with something I've learned. I have continued on my weaving adventure still. So I'm taking that floor loom weaving craftsy class, right? Now I do want to mention, because I've been talking about the class quite a bit, but I haven't really reviewed it. I've just kind of been talking about what I've learned from it. I do want to mention that I don't think that this is a good class for somebody to learn to weave. Like I've never wove anything before, and I had a little bit of knowledge, so I don't really know if that's fair, but because I've never woven anything before and I'm watching this class, I was obviously able to start and get going, but I feel like the class is kind of geared, maybe it just becomes like it feels intermediate really fast because there's so much information, and as the teacher's explaining everything, she adds even more information about like all the other ways you could customize something, and at some points I have felt overwhelmed with the amount of information, and I'm like, just give me one thing at a time and maybe I can learn these other things later. So I did want to mention that I kind of think it would have been better had I learned like a basic weaving class and then taken the floor loom weaving class, but it is what it is. I guess a lot of people probably don't start with the floor loom. I just was very fortunate to be gifted one and get to start there, but I have a feeling people probably start with a smaller, like a little rigid heddle loom, and so you've kind of got the basics from that. Then you move up to working with multiple shafts, right? I don't know. If you've been watching me for a while, you know that I usually don't start at the beginner level. I usually don't even follow a class. So this is good for me kind of to at least be following a class, even if it is a little more than beginner, I feel like. Even though it does contain everything from how to do it and beyond. I hope that explanation made sense. It is something I wanted to bring up because it is something that keeps coming up as I'm working on the class. Like, oh man, I wish this would slow down. I wish this didn't have quite as much information all at once. So this week I finished the second pillow of the class. So the warp has 3 pillows. One pillow was a lot of the basic weaves, like plain weave, 1-3 twill, half basket, and now I'm on to the second pillow, which was patterning within the 1-3 twill, I feel like is a good way to explain it. I learned how to do point twill. You end up with like a zigzag chevron. So my heddles are threaded 4-3-2-1, which means it's like direct. So with the point twill, you're weaving like you lift 4, and then you go back and you lift 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1. So you're just kind of doing this zigzag back and forth. And then I learned extended point twill, which you use kind of that same patterning, except you repeat the first 4 a couple times and then you repeat it backwards a couple times. So you end up getting these 2 bigger chevrons that are kind of following each other. Then I learned Dornick twill, which is the same thing except for you skip a number every time you switch directions, and so it gives you this jog between the chevrons, which like has this stronger effect. You'd like notice the change in direction a lot more. So I really enjoyed the way that those looked, and now I've finished my second pillow on the warp, and the next one is Weaver's Choice. So I am probably just going to go crazy playing around and seeing what happens. Also, outside of the class, I went to a holiday ornament swap get-together with some local crafters, and I learned from one of the women there how to read a weaving pattern / draft. Now this is covered in the class, but kind of briefly, you just kind of learn how to read the one setup for the class. But at the party, she went over this big book that was actually patterns for an 8-shaft loom, and she actually had the towels that she wove, and she showed us the pattern for those towels and how it all works, and my mind was just blown. It's really cool the way that these weaving patterns work, because there's multiple patterns in one setup, so you can warp and dress your loom one way and get several different weaving patterns depending on how you tie up your petals and the order in which you press them. So that was really cool. And I also learned, like, I'm working with a direct tie-up where my first floor petal is attached to my first shaft. But you can actually tie up, especially on bigger looms, if you have 8 petals, you don't have multiple, you just got 2 feet. So you have to find a way to push down multiple petals at once. You tie them all up together. And so that was really cool to learn about that. So yeah, I'll just leave that at that. Moving on to finished objects. I got the buttons on my cowls. So I considered these finished objects last week. I finally got buttons on them. So do they count for this week for finished? They're finished. So for this one, I ended up going with some burgundy buttons. I'm very happy because they blend in, yet they stand out just enough that it's easy to button them. I just went ahead and buttoned it straight with each other. And like I said, you could button it anywhere in the cowl because this patterning has chain 1 spaces that make it nice and easy for these 15mm buttons to slip on through. So you can wear it however you want. So I still need to make another sample and write that up so I have some solid numbers and recommendations for yarn weight and hook. I use the same hook for both of these yarns even though they're different weights. And this one has a silk base. So after blocking, this one grew in length. So they're the same width, which I made sure to do, but I ran out of yarn and I made this one longer. But after blocking, you can see this one's actually even just a tad longer now. So, you know, fiber content is very important when it comes to how your piece turns out. I mean, because look, this one was a lot more rigid, stood up a lot more on its own because it's Aran on the same hook. This is worsted on the same hook, so it's looser. It's got the silk and alpaca, so it's also more open and drapey, and you can see it just kind of hangs down and falls just a bit more. So in case you haven't been watching the most recent videos, I'll just repeat that this yarn is Cattails yarn on an alpaca silk wool base. I think there's wool in there. I put the tag away. But the colorway is called Snowballs. And this one is Schmutzrella Yarns Dory base in the Cunning Aren't You colorway, I believe. I hope that's right. Then I finished my hat design and I need to remake it. Oh, I also got a Pom Pom. So I ordered this Pom Pom. Not originally for myself, but it's for me now because it came too late because I ordered it from Canada. You know, sometimes when you buy things on Etsy, you don't realize where that shop is located. And I didn't realize that it was going to take so long to get here because of everything that's going on with Canadian Post and also Canada's slower shipping to the US in general. So I love the way this pom-pom looks with my hat. But, there's always a but, isn't there? But I prefer beanie styled hats, and I wasn't originally planning on putting a pom-pom on it, so I didn't make it slouchy. I knit it my regular beanie way. I will call it a relaxed fit beanie, because it's not like skull tight beanie. It's a relaxed fit beanie, not around the brim, but as far as length. Now, the relaxed fit beanie, I think, looks great, but the pom-pom, because it's not slouchy, sits kind of high up on my head, and I'm not a super big fan of that. I did put a button inside the top of the hat. So the pom-pom is removable, and the button also makes it nice and snug, so it's not like a floppy pom. Let's see. So no harm, no foul. Just a, you know, plastic, low-priced button sewn into the top of my hat. The pom-pom, I can link the shop I bought it from. It's got an elastic. Can you see that? It's got an elastic loop on it that fits nicely over that button. Oh. So I prefer the hat without the pom, with the way that I wear my relaxed fit beanies. So I will, when I finally get around to writing up the pattern, I will include options for slouchy. I mean, you just keep repeating the body. I think one more full repeat will give you a nice slouch. 2 will give you extra slouch. I mean, I feel like people that make enough beanies have an idea of how tall they like them. I do need to make one adjustment before it's ready, so I will need to be knitting it again. It took less than 50 grams of that Woolfolk Luft. Where's my bag? I'll show you. This is 1 hank of Woolfolk Luft. I thought I might need 2 to make a hat. This is what I had left after the first one. Now I will say that I haven't worn this outside, but I am concerned that it's not going to be super warm. Like, wearing it doesn't feel really warm, and it kind of feels like air is easily going to be able to travel through it, even though it is a bulky weight yarn. This yarn is a very interesting yarn. It's like a cotton chainette with this wool inside of it that kind of halos out around it. I love the way that it looks. I'm concerned about the way that it performs functionally. So as I get to actually start wearing this hat, I will let you know. Maybe I should have knit it at a tighter gauge. I used US 9s, I believe, US 7 for the brim and US 9 for the body, which I feel like is in the right ballpark, but this is a unique yarn, so you have to keep that in mind too. Oh, I said I needed to make one change to it, but I didn't tell you what that change was. So let me fix my hat hair and flip the hat around. So I told you guys I designed this pattern using Stitch Fiddle's free charting program, and I just plugged in symbols and went to town, but I didn't realize that it's not even a mistake, it's just a minor imperfection that could be changed to make the pattern stand out better. So you've got these wire heddles, basically. They look like wire heddles, but right here, these twists, these little cables, I should have, the cable that symbol that I popped in was where you purl one and you knit one, but to make it pop better, they should both be knit, because that's kind of how I've been keeping those in the not cabling rows, is they're knit, and then when they're cabled, one of them gets purled, and I think that texture is, I don't think I like it. So I'm going to knit another sample, switching out all those purls and those cables for knits and seeing if I like that a little better. I'm also going to use a different yarn that's going to show off the cabling a bit better, because this yarn has depth, right? But not stitch definition. I know you guys know what I'm talking about, right? Like, the color is dimensional, but there's not a lot of stitch definition. So I'm going to try it out with another bulky yarn, hopefully with something that has a little more stitch definition. So yes, another thing that I finished is I finished the spinning for my shift cowl. So I unfortunately don't have it in hank form to show you. I've already caked it up because I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go, but I'm holding off. So this side, I think, is better to see everything. So I did end up doing what I thought I was gonna do. I grabbed my blue gradient roving that I dyed, and I spun that for one single, and then the other single is that green and turquoise and kind of mustardy yellow braid that I showed you guys, and that's what it looks like plied together and then caked. So because I used a gradient for one ply for each of these spins, you can see, I'm going to try to hold them all at once. You can see in the cakes there is a light, I wound them light in the center and dark on the outside. So each cake for my shift has a light to dark. So I talked to some other people who have knit a shift and I asked for advice based on what colors are where in the cowl and what colors end up where, like which colors end up next to each other and which colors end up at the bottom and which ones by my face. So I did end up writing down what I'm gonna do. This is my color A and I'm starting with the light color. This is my color B and I'm starting with the dark. And this is my color C and I'm starting with the dark. So these two will go from light to dark, and this one's gonna go, or these two are going dark to light, this one's going light to dark. So I've got it written down so I won't forget, and I'm really excited to cast on, but I'm not going to start it until I bind off this next project. So moving on to works in progress, I pulled out an old whip. Last year's Stephen West, I think in my mind was thinking Stephen and Penelope for some reason. Last year's Stephen West's mystery knit along was the Speckle Pop, and I decided to make my Speckle and Goth because I didn't do pop colors, I did goth colors for my pops. I had a mini skein set from Knitty & Color that was called Goth Garden, and it was basically, I'm grabbing them out real quick, that's all of them. Oh, like this is not one of them, this is the leftover of main color 3. So I used all of main color 1, all of main color 2. I just ran out completely, actually to the point where I had to substitute main color 3 back in for main color 1 to finish the last repeat that I was working on, and I still had to cut my shawl 2 repeats short on the section 3 because I went up a needle size and I'm a loose knitter, so my shawl is a lot larger than it's supposed to be, which means it's taking a lot more yarn. So anyways, back to the Goth Garden set. So as you can tell, it just looks like black, but if I get that bright light on it, you can see it's several shades of black. It actually kind of reminds me of the Nightshade yarn that you've seen floating around. I don't remember the brand, but I think they call it Nightshade. And it's all these like basically black colors. So those are my pops. So I am on the bind off. So I am not going to start my shift cowl until I've bound this sucker off. Let's see if I can, of course it's going to be upside down, but I'm binding off on the right side, which means this was the beginning of the shawl. So this is main color 1, this white variegated you see here, which is Schmetzerle yarns in the Ouch color. And then the middle is Dream in Color, oh, I think it is. No, it's not. I think it might be Northbound Knitting. I'll put it at the bottom of the screen, or I'll link my project page, one or the other. And so then, so I got the purple for main color 2, and then this dark, beautiful, beautiful dark blue for main color 3, and then all my goth pops. So I just finished this section here before I've started the bind off, and you can see there's like a big eyelet. And then these chevron sections are garter stitch here and brioche here. And so with knitted brioche, you have to knit each row twice. That's what's been taking so long. There's like almost 900 stitches. This has been a forever project. It's definitely what Stephen West calls a schlanket. I mean, this is massive, and I'm kind of concerned about how or if I'm going to wear it. I do love the way that it looks. I love the colors I chose. I just don't know if it's something that I'll be able to fit into my wardrobe, which is something I think may have been holding me back from finishing it. Also, the rows, like I timed myself, they took like 40 minutes a row. So there was that too. But yeah, so I'm binding off right now, and I'm just a couple, well, I thought I was further than that. I-cord bind-offs take forever. That's why I thought I was further, because that's not the side I was binding off. Hold on. The reason I got confused is because you do a I-cord edge as you knit the shawl, so this is just my raw edge. Well, it's not raw, it's I-cord edge of the shawl as you knit it. I'm actually binding off, I-cord binding off over here, these ripples. And so I have gotten quite a bit of progress on the bind off. And like almost every point you change contrasting colors. So I've cycled through my 5 colors at least once. I think I'm on the 2nd or 3rd cycling through contrast colors. Now I know some people were like, I'm not going to cut my ends and do that all the way through, so they just kind of used a main color till they ran out and then switched. But I went ahead and stayed in pattern, and I'm doing it as the pattern suggests, which is about every chevron point. It's 3 stitch markers, which is another thing I'm really excited is I'm going to get all these stitch markers back. So I've got a little cup next to where I've been binding off, so I can put them in there. I think I've got about almost 15 or so in there right now. Only like 60 more to collect. So once this is bound off, then I will cast on the shift cowl. That way I can stay motivated to finish this sucker. I'm kind of scared to block it because it's so massive. It is entirely 4 skeins of fingering weight yarn, 100 grams. It's like 400 grams of fingering weight yarn. So this is, I don't think that I've ever knit a fingering weight shawl this large. I think that's pretty accurate. Actually, I know for a fact that's accurate. The only other large shawl that I've knit is that blanket wrap, and that was worsted weight. So, yes. Oh, I forgot my other project. Oh no, it's right here. So the only other project I've been working on is the kind of Advent crochet along that's been happening on Kendra of Hooked by Happenstance's Patreon page, and I'll link everything below. And so far, I love this pattern. So I'm using Cattails yarn in the Great Pumpkin colorway. It's a merino silk base. I love it. I'm almost a couple more rows and I should be past what I frogged in that tank top I was making. And so I believe I finished row 8. So this is a shawlette, but like I said, I don't know where my gauge hangs out, so it feels kind of long for a shawlette. It feels like it's more of a scarf, but so hopefully I don't run out of yarn. But she said a good way to wear it is like this, and I can definitely see that once I get some more rows on there. But the silk is super drapey, and I'm going for the heavily beaded option, so there's a lot of weight to this shawl, which I like, and I think overall it's going to be a nice thing because this pattern has lacy dimension to it, and a stitch marker just snagged one of my stitches. Awesome. So let me show you the main focal point that we've been building off of, and I'll show you the end. Because the rows aren't very long, it's kind of hard to show off. Or at least I'm not very far, so it's hard to show off. So here's what the end looks like, and I don't know if you can see, that's all beads. You see that? So that's all beads on the end. And then you've kind of got some like mesh patterning, I guess you could call it, And in the center, you're kind of building from the center out on these gorgeous pieces. So, shells and beads. It's very, very pretty. This is hard to show. So yeah. So far I'm really loving it. I'm really loving the beaded options and the way that the beads look in the shells. Now I'm a little concerned because this next row, I've looked at it but I haven't made it yet, uses 128 beads if I continue the way I'm beading, and that's a lot of beads, and we're only on row 9 out of 25. So if things continue the way they're continuing, kind of concerned that I'm not going to have enough beads. And I also am concerned about the weight of the shawl, but that's only because I don't know the rest of the pattern. So I just have to place my trust in the designer and hope that the beaded out option isn't too much beads. We'll see. But yeah, I'm really loving it. This is my first time using a H 5.0 millimeter crochet hook with fingering weight yarn, and I do like the loose gauge that it's giving me, and I'm really excited to block this out and see what happens. It's definitely going to be a very drapey piece, especially with all of the beads. So yeah, I'm excited to see how that all plays, because I don't think I've ever crocheted anything like this before. So alright, that's all I've got for whips. Moving on to Let's Chat. So I went to a holiday ornament exchange that I mentioned earlier. So there's some local crafters that I chat with in a Facebook group. We kind of share things that we've been working on, and it's really nice to have local inspiration, and these women are so very nice, and I really enjoy each and every one of them, and I got to meet one of them for the first time in person, and the rest of them we just got to get together and have, it's like kind of like a little potluck. Everyone brought a little bit of something to eat, and we exchanged ornaments. It was kind of like a, well, it wasn't like a Secret Santa because we knew whose name, who got who, like, and it ended up being a direct swap. So I ended up getting Lori. So I think, yeah, she drew 2 names and then those people were together. And so her and I ended up exchanging ornaments, and I made her a nitty-notty out of polymer clay. So I measured it to be 3 inches tall, so it should measure about 1 foot in length, which I thought was kind of fun. And it's just a cute little size for the tree. I learned how to make a polymer clay cane that looks like wood. So it was a fun way to get to make a unique ornament and try a new technique for the first time. I had planned on making some and putting them up in my Etsy shop, but that's not gonna happen because I'm just too darn busy / well, I'll talk about that later. So so that happened, and then Lori made me this adorable ornament. How cute is that? So with all the bobble hats that I knit, I got an actual bobble. How cute. So it was really cool because this was the first time Lori had ever done anything like this, and she learned a lot of kind of new, I don't know if you could call it new techniques, because she's knit colorwork before, but she's never really knit colorwork this fine and not to fit around an ornament, and she had to follow the pattern by herself because she couldn't ask me, whoops, she couldn't ask me how to do it because it was for me and she didn't want to ruin the surprise. So it was really, really cool, and I love it, and I hang it at the top of the tree so the kids can't touch it. It is a plastic ball under here because she was thinking smartly, in case the kids did break it, there wouldn't be glass inside the ball. So I absolutely love my new ornament. But yeah, so other than that, I was going to talk about what's really been on my mind this week. So this Let's Chat, I tried to touch on things that are still kind of crafty related, but a little more personal, not in like a personal way, but in a way so that you could get to know me and my thoughts a little bit better. This week, I not even this week, like this past month or maybe even longer, I've been really trying to focus my efforts and what I spend my time doing, and like how I wrote it in my show notes is goals and expectations. So I've been trying to find a way to really focus on what do I value so that I can decide on what do I want so that I can focus on how do I get what I want. And I feel like I've never really thought about these things. I've like loosely thought about them in my head, which has resulted in me kind of running around and doing all these random things and not making a lot of progress anywhere, or at least that's how it feels to me. So I've really been sitting down and thinking like, what's important to me? What do I want? Where do I want to go? How am I going to get there? And with the most important thing being, what do I value? What's important to me? And I don't know that, maybe you're like me, maybe you're not. I'd never really thought about that. You just kind of know those things. But actually sitting down and writing them out, I can see clear connections between things that I want, or things that I think are important, things that I value, which is basically what I want. And so I can make sure that the goals that I'm setting for myself are in direct alignment with the big deal. And part of the realizations that I've been having at least, are that I need to, sorry, my phone. Part of the realizations that I've been having, like personal revelations, are that I'm a get up and go person. You can be get up and going all you want, but if your actions aren't aligned with what you want, you're just kind of running around. And I definitely, looking back, I can see that. I have been running around, not really getting anywhere. So, with the Etsy shop thing, it just is not very important to me at the moment. It doesn't align with what I value and what I need to focus on. So as much as I would love to do it, it's not that important to me, so it's not going to happen. I've found that I need to focus on my most important things first, because I've let some things slip, and I'm starting to get back into a routine where I'm supporting my values first, and then everything else can fall depending on how much time there is a day. So I expect to do more than I really can, and I'm kind of starting to make baby steps towards realizing what can be achieved in a day reasonably without burning yourself out. Now obviously these things fluctuate, but I think I've been at an extreme spectrum for a little while, an extreme end of the spectrum. So I've been focusing on scaling everything back, only doing what I find to be the most important thing to be done, and that includes scheduling time to not get up and go. So scheduling time for self-care, things like just a few minutes to do something that brings me joy. I feel like that's stolen from Kendra of Hooked by Happenstance. A lot of the time she talks about things that bring you joy, but I think this is a very important concept to bring into your life. You need to do things that bring you joy. So just a few minutes to do something that brings me joy, and it doesn't need to be a long stretch of time, and it doesn't even need to be anything crazy. Sometimes for me that just is listening to a couple songs that bring me joy. So but allowing myself to have that time and making sure that I'm not taking on more work than I can handle, that's just really been my focus lately. So that's why I wanted to talk about the Etsy shop thing. So it's open. There's some things in there, but I have other areas that I need to focus on. So I just wanted to let you know, I guess, that that is not an area of focus for me right now. But I think I'm going to leave it at that because I don't want to get too personal. I think there are things that should not be on the internet. As much as I'm like a share all, tell all kind of person, there are things that are personal. I have a hard time drawing that line, and I've only realized it up until now. Things that I feel comfortable and don't feel comfortable sharing. So, yeah, I'll leave it at that. I will continue to do this podcast weekly because I am really enjoying it, and I've found a way to fit it into my schedule. I just have to wake up really early before the kids, but I can do that one day a week to do something I enjoy. This is one of the self-care moments. I enjoy sharing and talking about the things that I make. That's why I'm here, and hopefully you're here because you enjoy sharing in that with me, which I know I love to watch other people who have podcasts talk about the things that they make. But yeah, so before I ramble too long, I will see you guys next week. Until then, happy crafting. Bye!